The white hull of the Hope's Dawn caught the light from 3 distant suns as it moved through the darkness of space. Red crosses painted on both sides of the ship glowed under the bright lights that marked it as a medical vessel. Inside the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison watched the stars ahead while his crew worked quietly at their stations. "How long until we reach the Zilani colonies?" Jake asked his navigation officer. 18 hours, Captain," came the reply from Lieutenant Ben Clark, a young man who had joined the crew only 3 months ago. "The refugees have been waiting for these supplies for almost 2 weeks now." Jake nodded and walked to the large window that showed the endless space ahead. He had been flying aid missions for 12 years, ever since he left the human military. The Hope's Dawn was not a warship. It carried no weapons except for a few small defense guns that could barely hurt a fighter craft. What it did carry was hope for people who had lost everything. In the medical bay, 3 decks below, Dr. Lisa Carter checked her equipment one more time. She was a small woman with kind eyes and steady hands that had saved countless lives across the galaxy. Her team of 15 doctors and nurses prepared their surgical tools and medical supplies for what they knew would be difficult work ahead. "The reports from the colonies are bad," said Dr. Mark Johnson, looking up from his tablet. He was reading the latest information about the Zilani refugees. "They have no clean water, no medicine, and many of the children are sick." Lisa frowned as she read over his shoulder. 3,000 refugees living in caves and broken buildings. The war between the Korthak Empire and the hegemony destroyed their entire world. These people lost everything, just because their planet was in the wrong place. Down in the cargo hold, Engineer Pete Johnson walked between huge stacks of supply boxes. Each container held something that could save lives. Medical kits with basic drugs and bandages, water cleaning tablets that could make dirty water safe to drink, food packages that would feed a family for a week, emergency shelters that could house 20 people and protect them from cold and wind. Pete had loaded these supplies himself, back at New Terra Station. He knew exactly what was in each box because he had helped pack them. The human colonies had donated everything freely when they heard about the Zilani refugees. Humans understood what it meant to lose your home and need help from strangers. "Pete, come to the bridge, please," came the captain's voice over the ship's communication system. Pete made his way through the corridors of the Hope's Dawn. The ship was not large compared to military vessels, but it was designed to carry the maximum amount of aid supplies. Every space was used for something important. The crew quarters were small, but nobody complained. They all knew why they were here. On the bridge, communication officer Amy Brooks was listening to something on her headset. Her face looked worried as she turned to Captain Morrison. "Sir, I'm getting a distress call from the Kepler 7 system. It's about 40 minutes away if we change course now." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of distress call?" 3 Zilani civilian ships, Captain. "They're transporting refugees just like the ones we're going to help. The message says they're under attack." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Attacks on refugee ships were against every law of civilized space. Who's attacking them? "The signal is weak, but it sounds like Vorthan raiders, sir." Everyone on the bridge knew about the Vorthans. They were a warrior race that believed strength was the only thing that mattered. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. Most species in the galaxy tried to avoid them. "Amy, try to contact the Zilani ships directly," Jake ordered. Amy worked at her controls for several minutes before shaking her head. "I can't reach them, Captain. Either their communication systems are damaged or—" She did not finish the sentence, but everyone knew what she meant. Jake looked at the star map showing their current position. The Kepler 7 system was not far away, but going there would delay their mission to the colonies by at least 6 hours. The refugees waiting for them were already desperate for supplies. "Captain," came Dr. Carter's voice from behind him. She had come up from the medical bay after hearing about the distress call. "If there are wounded people out there, we have to help them." Pete Johnson nodded in agreement. "The Hope's Dawn has the best medical facilities in this sector. If those refugee ships are under attack, we might be their only chance." Jake made his decision quickly. It was not really a choice at all. The Hope's Dawn was a rescue ship, and there were people who needed rescue. Ben, change course for the Kepler-7 system, maximum speed. Yes, sir, Ben replied, his fingers dancing over the navigation controls. The ship began to turn, and Jake felt the slight vibration as the engines increased power. Amy, send a message to the Zilani colonies. Tell them we're responding to an emergency but will reach them as soon as possible. Already sending, Captain. Dr. Carter returned to the medical bay to prepare her team for possible casualties. Pete went back to the cargo hold to make sure all the emergency medical supplies were ready to move quickly. Everyone on the Hope's Dawn knew their job and did it without being told. As the ship flew toward the Kepler-7 system, Jake stood at the bridge window and watched the stars. He had been in situations like this before. Pirates and raiders often attacked refugee ships because they thought the refugees would be easy targets. Most of the time, the attackers ran away when a rescue ship arrived. Even pirates usually did not want to fight a ship that might call for help from military forces. 30 minutes to the Kepler-7 system, Ben announced. Amy, start scanning for ships as soon as we're in range, Jake ordered. Already prepared, Captain. The Hope's Dawn continued through space toward the emergency. Its crew did not know that they were flying into a trap that would change everything. They did not know that. The Vorten raiders waiting in the Kepler-7 system were different from the usual pirates and thieves. They did not know that War Commander Zethkar had decided to attack anything that came to help the refugees. Most importantly, they did not know that their enemy had never fought humans before and had no idea what humans did to those who attacked. Their medical ships, the white ship with its red crosses, flew onward through the darkness, carrying people who only wanted to help others. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when someone attacked a human aid ship, and they would learn why that was the biggest mistake the Vorthons had ever made. The Hope's Dawn came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-7 system. Captain Jake Morrison immediately saw the flashing lights on Amy Brooks's communication console as her scanners picked up multiple ships. Report, Jake said, moving to stand behind Amy's chair. I'm reading debris fields, Captain. Looks like 3 large ships were destroyed here recently. I'm also picking up escape pods scattered across the area. Amy's voice was tight with worry. And sir, there are 5 unknown ships about 2 million kilometers away. Jake felt his heart sink. They were too late to save the refugee ships, but maybe they could still rescue the survivors. Life signs in the escape pods? Yes, sir. Weak but steady. Looks like Zilani life forms. Good. Ben, take us toward the nearest group of pods. Amy, try to contact those unknown ships. Maybe they're here to help too. Amy worked at her controls for a moment, then shook her head. No response, Captain. They're not answering any of our calls. Dr. Lisa Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system from the medical bay. Captain, we're ready to receive casualties. How many survivors are we looking at? Still counting, Doctor. Stand by. Pete Johnson was already in the cargo bay, preparing the rescue equipment. The Hope's Dawn had special systems for picking up escape pods and bringing survivors aboard quickly. He had used this equipment many times before, but it never got easier to see the results of attacks on innocent people. On the bridge, Ben carefully moved the ship closer to the first group of escape pods. Through the main window, Jake could see the small craft floating in space like tiny lights against the darkness. Each pod held people who had lost everything and were now completely helpless. 5 pods in this group, Ben reported. I can bring us alongside them one at a time. Do it, Jake ordered. Amy, keep watching those unknown ships. Let me know if they move. Amy nodded, but her face showed concern. Captain, those ships are moving now. They're coming this way. Jake looked at the display screen that showed the positions of all the ships in the system. The 5 unknown vessels were indeed heading toward the Hope's Dawn, but they were still far away. How long before they reach us? At their current speed, about 20 minutes. We can rescue all the survivors in 15 minutes if we work fast, Pete said over the communication system. I'm ready to start bringing people aboard. Jake made his decision. Begin rescue operations. Amy, broadcast our identity and mission on all frequencies. Make sure those ships know we're a medical vessel. The first escape pod was brought into the cargo bay 3 minutes later. Pete and 2 crew members opened it carefully and found 4 Zilani inside. They were weak and frightened, but alive. The Zilani were tall, thin beings with blue-gray skin and large eyes. These 4 looked like they had not eaten in days. "Get them to the medical bay immediately," Pete said into his communicator. Dr. Carter and her team were waiting when the survivors arrived. She quickly checked each one and found they were suffering from dehydration and shock, but nothing life-threatening. Through a translation device, she learned what had happened. The Vorthan ships came without warning, one of the survivors told her. "They destroyed our ships and left us to die. They did not even ask for surrender. They just started shooting." Meanwhile, on the bridge, the rescue operation continued. The second pod held 6 survivors, and the third had 3. Each group told the same story. The Vorthans had attacked without mercy, destroying the refugee ships for no reason except that they could. "Amy, are those ships responding to our broadcast yet?" Jake asked. "No, sir. But Captain, I'm getting clearer readings on them now. They're definitely Vorthan warships." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. If the Vorthans had destroyed 3 refugee ships, they might not care that the Hope's Dawn was a medical vessel. "How much time do we need to finish the rescue?" 10 more minutes, Pete reported. "We have 12 more pods to collect. Amy, send another broadcast. Tell them we are a human medical ship on a rescue mission. Make it clear we are not armed and pose no threat." Amy sent the message, but there was still no response from the approaching ships. On her scanner, she could see that the Vorthan vessels were getting closer and moving faster. In the cargo bay, Pete worked as quickly as possible to bring the escape pods aboard. Each one held desperate people who had watched their homes and ships destroyed. Some were injured, others were just exhausted and scared. All of them were grateful to see the humans who had come to save them. Dr. Carter moved between the survivors, treating injuries and giving water to those who needed it. She had treated many species during her career, but the Zilani were always grateful patients. Even in their suffering, they thanked her for her help. "Captain," Amy called out urgently, "the Vorthan ships are accelerating. They'll be here in 8 minutes. Jake looked at the rescue operation status. They still had 6 pods to collect, and each one took at least 90 seconds to bring aboard safely. "Pete, we need to move faster." "Already working as fast as we can, Captain. These pods are damaged and hard to grab with our equipment." On the lead Vorthan ship, War Commander Zethkar studied the human vessel on his display screen. He had never seen a human ship before, but it looked weak and defenseless. The ship was white with strange red markings, and his scanners showed it had almost no weapons. "Commander, the human ship is broadcasting that it is a medical vessel," reported his communication officer. Zethkar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Medical vessel or not, they are in our territory now. Any ship that comes to help our enemies becomes our enemy too." "Should we demand their surrender?" "No," Zethkar replied. "We will destroy them like we destroyed the others. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can rescue the weak." Back on the Hope's Dawn, the rescue operation continued desperately. Pete managed to bring aboard 4 more pods in quick succession, but there were still 2 pods floating in space when Amy made her most urgent report yet. "Captain, the Vorthan ships are 5 minutes away and they're charging weapons." Jake had to make an impossible choice. He could try to finish the rescue and risk his entire crew, or he could leave 2 pods behind to save the 47 people he had already rescued. "Amy, send one final message. Tell them we will leave the area immediately if they allow us to finish the rescue." Amy sent the message, but the response was not words. Instead, the lead Vorthan ship fired a warning shot that exploded near the Hope's Dawn. The blast shook the medical ship and made everyone grab onto something for support. "Captain, they're not going to let us finish," Ben said, his voice tight with fear. Jake looked at the 2 remaining escape pods on his screen. Inside those pods were people who had already lost everything and were now about to be abandoned to die in space. But if he stayed to save them, the Vorthans might kill everyone. "Pete, how long for the last 2 pods?" 3 minutes, Captain." "Amy, how long before the Vorthans reach weapons range?" 2 minutes. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Pete, get those last 2 pods aboard. Ben, prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace the moment." Pete gives the all clear. "Sir, the Vorthans will be in range before we can escape," Amy warned. Then we better hope they give us those 60 seconds, Jake replied. The Hope's Dawn continued its rescue mission as 5 Vorthon warships closed in for the attack. Jake Morrison did not know that his decision to save every life possible was about to start a war. He only knew that humans did not abandon people who needed help no matter what the cost. The Vorthons were about to learn what happened when someone attacked a human medical ship, and they were going to regret it for the rest of their very short lives. The first plasma bolt hit the Hope's Dawn on its left side, tearing through the outer hull like paper. The explosion threw everyone on the bridge to the floor as lights flickered and alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Captain Jake Morrison pulled himself up and grabbed his command chair. "Damage report." "Hull breach on Deck 4, came Pete Johnson's voice over the communication system. He sounded shaken but determined. "Emergency doors are sealed. We lost the port cargo bay, but no one was hurt." Amy Brooks was back at her station, blood running from a cut on her forehead. "Captain, 4 more Vorthon ships are coming in fast. They're surrounding us." Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the dark shapes of the enemy warships as they moved to attack positions. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy as they prepared to fire again. "Amy, broadcast our surrender on all frequencies. Tell them we give up." Amy sent the message immediately, but War Commander Zethkar was not interested in prisoners. On his bridge, he watched the damaged human ship and smiled. This was easier than he had expected. "Commander, the humans are trying to surrender," his communication officer reported. "Good," Zethkar replied. "It will make boarding easier. But, first, damage their engines so they cannot escape. Then we will take what we want from their ship." The second attack was worse than the first. 3 Vorthon ships fired together, hitting the Hope's Dawn in multiple places. The medical ship shook like it was being torn apart. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Carter held onto an examination table as medicine bottles crashed to the floor around her. "We have wounded coming in," she called to her team. The Zalani survivors they had rescued were terrified, but the human medical staff worked to keep them calm while explosions echoed through the ship. On the bridge, sparks flew from damaged control panels. Ben Clark tried to keep the ship steady, but the engines were failing. Jake knew they had only minutes before the Vorthons would board his ship. "Amy, did you get that emergency signal out before they hit our communication array?" Amy nodded, wiping blood from her eyes. "Yes, sir." The message went out on the emergency frequency just before the first attack. It included video of the attack and our position. Jake felt a small bit of hope. If the message had reached human, space help might be coming. But he knew it would take days for any human military ships to reach them. They were on their own. In the cargo bay, Pete worked frantically to save the emergency supplies. The Vorthon attack had destroyed half of the medical equipment meant for the Zalani colonies, but he managed to move the rest to safer areas of the ship. "Captain, they're asking us to shut down all power and prepare for boarding," Amy reported. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "Do it. All crew members prepare for capture. Hide nothing and resist nothing. We are a medical ship and we will act like one." 20 minutes later, Vorthon soldiers in heavy armor came aboard the Hope's Dawn. They moved through the ship like they owned it, taking anything they wanted. War Commander Zethkar himself came to the bridge to see the human captain who had dared to rescue his enemies. "You are Captain Morrison," Zethkar said through a translation device. His voice was deep and threatening. "I am," Jake replied, standing straight despite his injuries. "This is a medical vessel on a humanitarian mission. Attacking us violates every law of space." Zethkar laughed. "Your laws mean nothing here, human. You came to help our enemies, so you are our enemy too." The people we rescued were civilians, refugees who had already lost everything. "Weak creatures who deserve to die," Zethkar spat. "Just like you will deserve to die if you cause trouble." The Vorthons took Captain Morrison and his senior officers to their ship as prisoners. The rest of the crew, including Dr. Carter and the rescued Zalani, were locked in the cargo bay under guard. The Hope's Dawn was left floating in space, damaged but not destroyed. Meanwhile, Amy's emergency message was traveling through human space at the speed of light. It reached the human colony of New Terra in 4 hours, where Colony Administrator Helen Parker was having breakfast when the priority message arrived on her desk. Helen watched the video of the attack 3 times before she fully understood what she was seeing. Vorthan warships firing on a clearly marked medical vessel, a human aid ship trying to rescue refugees and being attacked without warning or demand for surrender. "Get me Earth Command immediately," she told her communication officer. "Priority Alpha emergency." The video reached Earth 6 hours later. Admiral Chuck Stevens was in a meeting about supply routes when his aide interrupted with the emergency transmission. The meeting room fell silent as they watched the Vorthons destroy parts of the Hope's Dawn while it broadcast its medical status. "How long ago did this happen?" Stevens asked. 14 hours, sir. The signal traveled here as fast as possible." Stevens stood up and walked to the large map of human space on the wall. He found the Kepler-7 system and calculated distances in his head. "Where is the Third Fleet right now?" "The Third Fleet is conducting training exercises in the Alpha Centauri system, sir. Admiral Kate Williams commanding. Contact Admiral Williams immediately. Tell her to break off exercises and proceed to the Kepler-7 system at maximum speed. Full battle readiness." Stevens turned to his staff officers. "I want every ship we can spare sent to that area. The Vorthons just made the biggest mistake in their history." While the Admiral gave orders, the video was also being sent to news networks across human space. Within hours, every human in the galaxy had seen the footage of their medical ship being attacked while trying to rescue refugees. On the colony world of New Boston, factory worker Chris Miller watched the news with his family. "They attacked a hospital ship," he said to his wife. "A ship trying to save people." "Why would anyone do that?" she asked. "Because they thought humans were weak," Chris replied. "They thought we wouldn't fight back." Similar conversations were happening on every human world. From the busy cities of Earth to the frontier settlements at the edge of space, humans watched the attack and felt the same cold anger building in their hearts. In the Earth Senate, politicians, who usually argued about everything, suddenly agreed on one thing. Senator Bob Hayes stood up and spoke for everyone when he said, "We cannot let this attack go unanswered. If we do not respond with strength, every medical ship in human space will become a target." The vote was unanimous. War against the Vorthon Empire was authorized within hours of the video reaching Earth. At military bases across human space, soldiers and pilots reported for duty without being called. They had seen the attack on the Hope's Dawn, and they wanted to be part of the response. Young men and women who had never thought about joining the military suddenly found themselves at recruitment stations. On New Terra, Helen Parker received a message from her brother, who served on a cargo ship near the frontier. "I saw the news," he wrote. "If they want a war over attacking our doctors, they can have one. But they're going to regret it." Admiral Stevens looked at the reports coming in from across human space. Ship after ship was volunteering for combat, duty. Colonies were offering supplies and support. The entire human race was mobilizing for war. "Sir," his aide said, "Admiral Williams reports that the Third Fleet will reach the Vorthan home system in 60 hours. Stevens nodded. "Tell her she has full authorization to do whatever is necessary to rescue our people and make the Vorthans pay for this attack." In the Kepler-7 system, War Commander Zethkar had no idea that his easy victory over one small medical ship had just started a war with the entire human race. He thought he had won a simple battle. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The space around the Vorthan homeworld had been quiet for hundreds of years. Their military leaders believed their planet was safe because no one had ever dared to attack them. That changed when 47 human warships appeared at the edge of their system without warning. Admiral Kate Williams stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Retribution and looked at the planet that had never seen war. She had watched the video of the attack on the Hope's Dawn 12 times during the journey here. Each time made her more determined to make the Vorthans pay. "Admiral, we're detecting 53 Vorthon military ships in orbit around their planet," reported Commander Steve Turner from the destroyer Vengeance. "They're moving to intercept us." "How long before they reach us?" Kate asked. 20 minutes. At their current speed. Kate nodded and opened a communication channel to all ships in her fleet. This is Admiral Williams. The Vorthans thought they could attack a human medical ship and face no consequences. Today we prove them wrong. Remember, we are here to rescue our people and destroy their ability to hurt innocent civilians. Show them what happens when you attack human healers. On the planet below, War Commander Zethkar received reports of the human fleet with growing alarm. He had expected maybe 1 or 2 human ships to come looking for their missing medical vessel. Instead, he faced the largest military force that had ever entered Vorthan space. "How many ships?" he asked his intelligence officer. 47 confirmed, Commander, including several ships larger than anything in our fleet. Zethkar felt fear for the first time in his military career. "Send all available ships to intercept them. Contact our allies and request immediate assistance." But the Vorthans had no real allies. Other species had tolerated them because they were strong, not because they were liked. When the call for help went out, the response was silence. The first battle lasted only 18 minutes. Human weapons technology was far more advanced than anything the Vorthans had seen. Kinetic bombardment systems fired metal slugs at incredible speeds, punching through Vorthan armor like it was made of paper. Energy weapons that could slice a warship in half struck with surgical precision. Commander Steve Turner led a squadron of destroyers against the Vorthan defense fleet. His ships moved like dancers, avoiding the clumsy Vorthan fire while their own weapons found their targets every time. "Target their weapons and engines only," Turner ordered his gunners. "We want prisoners who can tell us where they're keeping our people." The battle was so one-sided that some Vorthan ships tried to surrender after the first few minutes. The humans accepted the surrenders and took the crews prisoner, but they continued to advance toward the planet. On the surface, Vorthan civilians watched in terror as their mighty fleet was destroyed in less than half an hour. The humans had not even slowed down. Radio broadcasts across the planet carried panic as people realized their military could not protect them. Admiral Williams ordered the second phase of the attack to begin. Human Marines in assault shuttles launched toward the planet's surface, heading for military bases and detention centers where the crew of the Hope's Dawn might be held. Captain Brian Foster led the Marine assault on the main Vorthan military base. His troops moved with discipline and precision, using non-lethal weapons when possible but deadly force when necessary. They were angry about the attack on the medical ship, but they were still professional soldiers. "Remember, we're looking for human prisoners and Zalani refugees," Foster told his men over the radio. "Check every detention facility." The Vorthan ground forces put up more resistance than their fleet had, but they were not prepared for human military tactics. The Marines used speed and surprise to overwhelm defensive positions. Advanced armor protected them from most Vorthan weapons while their own guns were devastatingly effective. In a detention center 50 kilometers from the capital city, Captain Jake Morrison heard explosions getting closer. He and his crew had been prisoners for 3 days, given little food and no medical care for their injuries. The Zalani refugees were in an even worse condition. "That sounds like human weapons," Dr. Lisa Carter said quietly. She was treating a wounded Zalani child with supplies she had hidden in her medical kit. "How can you tell?" asked Pete Johnson. "The frequency of the explosions. Human guns have a different sound than alien weapons." Minutes later, the door to their cell exploded inward. Human Marines in combat armor rushed in, weapons ready. The first Marine through the door removed his helmet and smiled. "Captain Morrison, I'm Sergeant Joe Lewis, 3rd Marine Battalion. We're here to take you home." Jake felt relief wash over him like warm water. "How many ships did you bring?" 47, sir. The entire 3rd Fleet. Admiral Williams sends her regards." As the rescue continued, Admiral Williams watched the destruction of Vorthan military power from her command ship. Every weapons factory, every military base, every ship construction facility was being systematically destroyed, but civilian areas were left untouched. "Admiral, we've located the survivors from the Hope's Dawn," came the report from the surface. "Captain Morrison and 38 crew members are alive. We also found the Zalani refugees they rescued." "Excellent. What about the Vorthan commander who ordered the attack?" "War Commander Zethkar is in custody, along with most of his senior officers." Kate smiled grimly. Bring them all up to the fleet. They're going to face trial for war crimes. The destruction of Vorthon military power took 6 days. When it was Zindon over, they had no ships, no weapons factories, and no ability to threaten anyone ever again. The human fleet had accomplished in less than a week what the Vorthons had thought was impossible. On the 7th day, Admiral Williams broadcast a message to the entire Vorthon population. Your military attacked a human medical ship that was rescuing refugees. This was a violation of every law of civilized warfare. Your ability to make war has been destroyed, but your people will be allowed to live in peace if you follow the new rules. The new rules were simple. The Vorthons would pay compensation to every species they had attacked. They would hand over all war criminals for trial. They would never again build weapons capable of attacking other planets, and they would allow human inspectors to make sure they followed these rules. War Commander Zethkar was brought before a galactic court to face charges. When asked why he had attacked a medical ship, he gave an answer that became famous throughout the galaxy. I did not know humans would respond so strongly to an attack on one of their aid ships. The judge, a wise alien from an ancient species, looked at him with disgust. Then you did not understand humans at all. They will cross the galaxy to help strangers, and they will cross it again to punish anyone who attacks their healers. The Hope's Dawn was rebuilt and renamed Mercy's Shield. Captain Morrison returned to command it, but now it traveled with an escort of human warships whenever it entered dangerous areas. The ship continued its humanitarian missions, but every species in the galaxy now knew that attacking it would bring the full might of humanity down upon them. Dr. Lisa Carter received medals from a dozen different species for her work, treating wounded prisoners during the Vorthon captivity. In her acceptance speech, she said, "Humans help others because it is right, but we also protect those who help others because that is right too." The Zilani refugees who had been rescued were settled on a new world provided by the human government. They named their first city Hope's Dawn in honor of the ship that had saved them. Throughout the galaxy, the story of the attack on the human medical ship became a warning tale. Species that had never heard of humans before learned one important lesson. Humans might be peaceful healers, but they were also terrible enemies when their mercy was repaid with violence. And War Commander Zethkar spent the rest of his life in prison, regretting the day he decided to attack a human aid ship.